Hey yo, Fro Wrestling Podcast listeners, help us out. Click subscribe and show your support. And before we get started, let's start off with our patron page. Those of you who want to be patrons of the Fro Wrestling Podcast, please check out our page link at www.patreon.com/Fro Wrestling Podcast. Hello everyone, and welcome to this, our second live episode of the Fro Wrestling Podcast. Thank you to everyone who is tuning in. Again, our loyal fan base has been amazing. You guys are awesome. You've made this really a great experience for me personally, and I hope I find ways to keep you guys entertained along the way as well. So, tonight we've got a lot of things going on. After last week, we had such a great response from the 128-man tournament that we did, the former World Champions tournament, and it worked so well that people were sending me messages asking me, is there a way you could do a tag team tournament? And the problem with the tag team tournament thought was, there's so many combinations of so many great talents over the years that how the heck am I going to put this thing together? And after a week of cramming my brain, I put together 256 teams, bracketed them out, and put them into tournament form. I got a lot of suggestions from our viewers over the week, and hopefully you guys like the tournament. The tournament page itself is going live right now, so anybody who is interested in getting started on the fan voting, feel free to do so. The link that you can go to is www.frolifeplanning.com/fanpoll, and that is where you will find 13 blocks. Yes, 256 teams takes up a whole lot of space. So when you go there, there are different blocks. That way you don't have to do it all at one time. I don't expect anybody to sit there for all that time and just click away and click away and click away. Though I will admit to you, when I was putting it together, if I was the one voting, which unfortunately for myself, I am not voting, I would totally get sucked into this stuff. What I did do, because some people were asking, what am I going to do if this final comes down to, Shawn Michaels and Diesel versus Shawn Michaels and Triple H? I have eliminated that as a possibility. All, or as many as possible, of the like wrestlers are going to face off in their various incarnations of their tag teams against each other, just so I can eliminate as many of the duplicates as possible, as early as possible, and that way we can have some real variety throughout the different rounds of the tournament. I have noticed that I did have a little bit of a gap in some of the teams that I did not include. I will apologize to those people who are huge fans of All Japan Pro Wrestling. There are a couple teams that I did not put in from there, as well as New Japan, but I did try to give you guys as much of an all-encompassing tag team tournament as I can, and I hope you guys like it. So again, for those who want to jump on there right away, www.frolifeplanning.com/fanpoll, and you can start voting right now for the various tag team combinations and matches that are available on the tournament. As we go through the show, feel free, this is something new for the Fro Wrestling Podcast, we have our sound off line. So, the phone number for the sound off line is 267-642-1160, and you can pop onto there. Now, it's not a live line, you're not going to get somebody picking up the phone. It's going to be essentially a voice-to-text service where you could put in your questions and comments throughout the show, and then I could try to get to as many of those as possible throughout the show. That, and as always, if you want to shoot us some questions, comments, whatever it is, through the Twitter feed at FAFII0918 is fine. I will get to some of those if I can. That seemed to be very productive last time we did one of these live episodes. Whatever way you'd like to do. If you want to shoot me email questions, I won't guarantee I can get to the emails tonight, but I will definitely look at email questions too. A lot of people seem to like to do that. That's where I get the most feedback. And then when this show is over, it will be available for replay on YouTube. And by all means, please click subscribe on YouTube. Our YouTube viewers have really blown up the last couple weeks, and I really appreciate that. If you know somebody who is entertained by the world of professional wrestling, by all means, spread the word to them. Let them get on there, and hopefully we could do something that can brighten up their day like I'm trying to do for you guys. So, once again, that phone number, 267-642-1160, if you want to shoot questions and comments for the show. So let's get started right away. I'm going to look at some of the intriguing matches that are in the first round of the tournament. We'll do that as we go through the different news tidbits. We'll cover the news of the day, and hopefully what we're going to do with the actual voting itself, I'm going to let the voting stay open. You do not have to vote tonight. If you don't have enough time, that's fine. We're going to keep the voting open throughout the week, and I will be closing the voting on Thursday evening, which, speaking of Thursday evening, that is our first tidbit of news. WWE has announced that the WWE United Kingdom show that they recorded this past week will start airing this coming Thursday, the 18th of May. And if you are somebody who really enjoyed the United Kingdom Championship Tournament and the talents that were available there, and you want to see them, not just those people, but the other talents from 205 Live kind of integrated into this WWE production for the UK audience, by all means, check that out. It'll be available on the WWE Network. So let's move into the round one of the tournament, because I know some people want to get right into that. I got a lot of questions last week. Some people were surprised at our semifinals and finals of our singles tournament. How did this guy get to here and how did that guy get to there? And it's crazy. When you think about it, you reflect on how long it takes to do one of these tournaments. This tournament will not take quite as long as the singles, even though it has more people. This the way we have you guys voting is going to help immensely in getting the tournament a lot quicker as we go through it, and that way we can get you guys some instant feedback each week on your votes and whatnot. For those who are unaware, all the voting is handled by SurveyMonkey.com. If you have some form of need for any kind of survey, if you're doing research projects, things like that, you need to poll the audience, use SurveyMonkey.com. It is you can get a free account, and it is a wonderfully easy format to use. So in the first round, some of the more intriguing matches you're going to find around one of the tournament, you have to understand, I really tried to make a concerted effort to ensure that wrestlers who've been in the multiple tag teams are pitted against each other. I don't like redundance. It drives me crazy. We should be seeing, I mentioned earlier the Shawn Michaels Triple H. They're in there as D-Generation X. Shawn Michaels and Diesel are in there. And what I want people to do when you're looking at the different matches, please try to think of these teams when they are at their pinnacle. Naturally, I think when you look at Shawn Michaels and Triple H versus Shawn Michaels and Diesel, you would think that Shawn Michaels is kind of a wash there. But the reality is, Shawn Michaels, when he was with Diesel, was when he was at the peak of his career. I'm not saying that he wasn't phenomenal when he was with Triple H, but I think when he was running as the world champion, and that's when he was hanging with Diesel, I think he was a little bit better in-ring performer. On the same token, I think that Diesel was a better performer when he was with Shawn Michaels earlier than he was later in his career. And Triple H, I don't know, Triple H to me has always been Triple H. I don't really see much difference throughout his career unless you go really early before he bulked up and got all that mass that he's got. But in round one, there's 13 blocks. We're going round one, block one. We have plenty of talent. In that first block, the Road Warriors are in there. Ric Flair and Batista from Evolution are in there, Money Incorporated. But the match that I find the most intriguing is between the Fabulous Freebirds and Dr. Death Steve Williams teaming up with Terry Gordy. For those who don't know a whole lot about that, the intrigue of that combination, obviously Terry Gordy, a founding member of the Fabulous Freebirds. I'm expecting that it's going to be a lot closer in the voting. It offers some interest because, in the early days of the Freebirds, Terry Gordy was like the stalwart of the team. He was really in pretty much every match. He and Michael Hayes really were the front runners of the team. And then, of course, Buddy Jack Roberts would be integrated whenever they needed a guy to beat on. They'd let the baby faces beat up Buddy Jack Roberts. And then, of course, Gordy and Hayes would be, the muscle of the team. Well, as the team went on, Terry Gordy and Buddy Roberts were phased out, and Jimmy Jam Garvin came in, and he was integrated into the group, and he, with Michael Hayes, are potentially a little more recognizable for our younger audience. As many people would reference, when they were inducted into the Hall of Fame, Hayes and Garvin were the ones who came out on the stage and did their speeches and whatnot. Unfortunately, we don't have Terry Gordy or Buddy Roberts with us when they were inducted, or I'm sure they would have been out there speaking as well. But when you think about their actual wrestling career, Hayes, Gordy, Buddy Jack Roberts is a phenomenal six-man tag team. But for the purposes of this tournament, I feel like it's important to focus on the Jimmy Garvin version of the Freebirds, just because we have the Gordy with Dr. Death Steve Williams, who, if you are not familiar with them as a tag team, they run rampant over Japan tag team wrestling scene all throughout the 90s. And they had a short stint in WCW where they came in, and they were one of the few teams who could put down the Steiner brothers, back when the Steiner brothers were the tag team in professional wrestling. So, interesting matchup here. I'll be curious to see how you voters vote with this. And look, I'm not the one voting. If you want the Freebirds, if you want to think about the Freebirds from the Terry Gordy, Michael Hayes perspective, you do that. I'm so not a picky guy when it comes to this. I'm going to enjoy this no matter who you pick. So go for it. That to me in block one is the absolute money match. In much the same way, I'm interested in round 1, block 2, as there's a great discussion to be had over a matchup between the British Bulldogs and Owen Hart and the British Bulldog. So the British Bulldogs are virtually universally known as one of the greatest tag teams of all time, but when you compare their actual accolades on the huge stage of World Wrestling Entertainment or anywhere for that matter, against the success that Owen Hart and the British Bulldog had when they were paired up, it would be hard to deny that Owen and the Bulldog were a little bit more successful, at least in terms of their accolades as far as winning tag team championships and other championships and in being parts of major storylines. The British Bulldogs, I think a lot of the respect that the British Bulldogs receive is attributed to the Dynamite Kid being potentially one of the greatest, if not the greatest, pound-for-pound wrestler in the history of professional wrestling. I'm not voting. If I were, though, I would have a tough time choosing between these two teams, as I think the competition is a lot closer than it looks on the surface. I think there's going to be people who pop in there, they see the team British Bulldogs and instantly click on them because of that reputation. But please don't forget how incredibly important Owen Hart and the Bulldog were during their run, during the Attitude Era. So, and I'm not trying to guide your decision. Again, there is no loser in that match, in my opinion. They're both phenomenal combinations. And I can't wait to see who you guys choose. But by all means, when you're going through this tournament, I hope you guys are considering all angles, because some of these teams is going to be blaringly obvious who wins. Other ones, it's going to get tough, and it's going to get tough quick. So don't forget, if you are just tuning in, go to www.frolifeplanning.com/fanpoll to start casting your votes in the opening round of our 256-team tag team tournament. And we are going to work our way through this week by week and try to get you guys to your all-time greatest tag team in this first ever tag team tournament voting. And if you want to call in with your questions and comments, our speech to text service is active right now. The phone number again is 267-642-1160. If you'd like, as far as I've been told, you can actually text right to that number, so feel free to do that if you'd like. Moving on to some more news that's going on today. Last night was Ring of Honor's War of the Worlds pay-per-view. Fantastic pay-per-view top to bottom, at least as far as the card was on paper. I was actually looking forward to this, and my reaction to the show was like shock and awe combined with rush and missed opportunities. And when I say that, what I mean is there were certain high spots of the show that are just timeless. If you're a die-hard professional wrestling fan like myself, you really appreciate seeing history and seeing key moments. And there was definitely some of those. On the flip side, a lot of the matches felt like they were in hyperspace. They were just rushed so much. Some of the endings came too quickly, or when the endings finally occurred, they occurred in a way that it didn't make sense how quickly they got to a finish. And so, looking back at it, I'm not going to sit here and tear apart a pay-per-view from one of the best companies that has ever been in the history of pro wrestling. Ring of Honor is a class act, so I have nothing but respect for Ring of Honor. I'm going to highlight instead the really amazing moments from the show, starting with the IWGP United States Championship. The announcement by New Japan Pro Wrestling and Ring of Honor on this show that there will be an IWGP US title, that there will be a tournament to crown a new champion when they launch their G1 special here in the United States. And it sounds like that's going to be in Southern California. And with the announcement of the championship, if you go online, there's a beautiful picture of this brand new championship belt they introduced last night. And Jay Lethal is the first competitor that they have announced has been signed for the tournament. Now, at the show, Hangman Page came out and he was all frustrated. He wants to be a part of the tournament as well, and I highly anticipate he'll be a part of the tournament, and they've already got that storyline built into the tournament here, Jay Lethal and Hangman Page. I would not be surprised if they end up either opening the show with the two of them, if they feel that Hangman Page is on the level where he would be a legitimate threat to Jay Lethal, or if they close the show with Jay Lethal and Hangman Page so they can crown the champion after setting up this friction here on this show. In other moments on the show, Adam Cole put on a classic match with Hiroshi Tanahashi. For people who are diehard purist wrestling fans, you couldn't have asked for a better matchup. Two amazing talents. Tanahashi has been the face of New Japan Pro Wrestling for an extended period of time. Adam Cole has been a Ring of Honor stalwart for a very long time. And what's interesting about this is Tanahashi has kind of had to take a step back with the emergence of Kazuchika Okada and Naito and all these other talents who've really been exposing the beauty of New Japan Pro Wrestling. And Adam Cole is kind of doing a similar thing. And it's not a situation where Adam Cole is in danger of his talent diminishing, which is part of the problem with Tanahashi. He's been wrestling so long, his quality of in-ring work is starting to dip a tad bit. Adam Cole's in a different situation. His contract is up with Ring of Honor. He doesn't have a contract with anybody, and everybody wants him, and we all know that there's one company in particular that is going to put the full court press on signing him. And, this isn't WWE here. WWE, there'd be 90-day no-compete clauses and all those kinds of things. Adam Cole is free to do what he wants to do. And, he's been the good soldier for a very long time. Stayed with Ring of Honor a very long time. But it feels like this may be the right time for him to make the move and move on over to the World Wrestling Entertainment and make a debut with the NXT brand. Now, there has been some concern in the past that WWE is signing talents too quickly. And when they sign talents too quickly, it looks like they're in some kind of collusion with those talents before their contracts are actually up. But I'm hoping that is not the situation in this. I hope that they don't hesitate, don't wait, bring the guy in. He's an amazing, amazing talent, and it would be great to see him in NXT sooner rather than later. So that was a cool part of the night, seeing these two guys get in the ring. Now, the end of the match, Adam Cole actually loses the match. Tanahashi looked great. And then, of course, Adam Cole has had issues with the Bullet Club. Everybody knows he's leaving. So they come out to do almost like their own version of like curtain call. The Young Bucks come out. Kenny Omega is not there. So Kenny Omega comes on the big screen, and he's poking a little bit of fun, and then he's congratulating. And it almost feels like a real moment. There's an emotional moment there. But then, of course, because it is professional wrestling, there has to be some reality there. And so we end up having the appearance of Marty Scurll, the newest member of the Bullet Club, opening his umbrella with a Bullet Club logo, attacking Adam Cole, the Young Bucks attacking Adam Cole, and this is their way of sending off Adam Cole and writing him off the storyline. He'll no longer be a member of the Bullet Club. I'm fine with it. I really am, because I think Marty Scurll, whether people realize it or not, Marty Scurll is becoming quickly one of the best talents in the world. He's willing to put people over. He's willing to be the man. I think he's world champion material in short order. So I thought this was a great replacement for Adam Cole, especially when Adam Cole's been such a popular member of the roster for so long. You had to put somebody in there who could really hold that position. I think Marty Scurll is the perfect guy to do it. My only concern is when you have people like Cody also in the Bullet Club, and Cody's being booked in world championship matches. You don't want to have so many talents in the Bullet Club that you crowd the top of the card. And that's what I'm concerned may start to happen, is that with Marty Scurll and Cody and Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, you still have the rest of the talents that are over in New Japan that are members of the team, Takahashi, etc. You don't want to get to the point where you don't have enough room for your guys to progress, and you need to be able to share the wealth with the championships, something that they've done so well for so long in the Bullet Club. Starting to look like that could become a little bit of an issue, so have to keep our eyes on that. But in the meantime, Marty Scurll looked amazing. They actually shot some promotional photos after the show with he and the Young Bucks, which you can find online. Cool stuff. Very cool angle. The main event of the night saw Christopher Daniels retain the Ring of Honor World Championship over Cody and over Jay Lethal. I'm fine with him keeping the title. I did not want to think of Christopher Daniels, after all these years waiting to be world champion, I never wanted to see him be a transitional champion. That would be a slap in the face of all of us who celebrated watching him win the Ring of Honor World Championship. I think in the whole calendar year of 2017, seeing Christopher Daniels hoisted up on the shoulders of his peers, holding up the Ring of Honor World Championship and the original Ring of Honor World Championship, was just a priceless moment. And I think when you have a moment like that, you have to maintain that for a certain period of time, because you really don't want to squash that. That was organic. The fans appreciated it. There were tears all over the arena. People watching at home were just thrilled. It was something that needed to be done, and he was the perfect guy to do it. So giving a championship win to somebody else in this match, to me, wouldn't have been the right move. My only concern is this. Cody has pretty much not won a thing since he's been in Ring of Honor. And anywhere else in the world, he's a premier attraction. He's defeating people like Kurt Angle elsewhere, so I have a tough time with him losing so much when he's beating people like Kurt Angle elsewhere on the independent scene. And Jay Lethal, the guy who was literally unbeatable for an extended period of time, now has he loses way too often. Nobody could take the title off him for the better part of a year and a half. Now all of a sudden, he can't seem to get a big win. He gets the menial wins, the ones that show up on the TV show every week or so. But in a pay-per-view moment, when there's a championship on the line, he can't pick up a win. And I don't really like that. I think that's not good for his character. We have our first Twitter question popping in from SoCal Al, who wants to know if the WWE Women's Tournament will be a joke, considering how many premium talents are signed to TNA and other promotions. It's actually a really good question, because if you think about it, you know, if you're a true diehard for women's wrestling, and it may seem weird that I'm saying that, but there are people who right now feel like the women's divisions in both Raw and SmackDown and elsewhere are in a lot of ways better than the male performers. And when you think about this 32 women tournament, you can't have a real women's tournament claiming to have the best talent in the world if you're not going to include people like Angelina Love, if you're not going to include people like Velvet Sky, or people like that, the TNA roster, Gail Kim. You know, you got to bring in somebody like Awesome Kong. I hope they bring Awesome Kong in as Karma. That would be wonderful. But I feel like there are a lot of talents that are tied up elsewhere that's really going to make selling this as a collection of the best from around the world a tough one. When they did the Cruiserweight Classic, I was actually okay with the way things went down, because you had people like Kota Ibushi come in, who is as good gets when it comes to cruiserweights. You had, you know, a plethora of talent that came in that made the tournament seem legit. Now, of course, you didn't have people like Will Ospreay and people like that. Would have been nice to see him. Ricochet. Would have been nice to see them in the tournament, but you can only do so much. In this situation, 32 females, if you look at the Raw and SmackDown rosters right now, which is another thing that worries me about this tournament, and when he asks, you know, is this going to be a joke? If it doesn't come down to the 8 best WWE female talents right now, it's a joke of a tournament to begin with. You might have one independent girl who slips through and makes it into the Elite 8 round. You know, but, you know, what do you got? You got Charlotte, you got Becky Lynch, you got Naomi on SmackDown, you've got Natalya, Carmella, and Tamina. Those 6 alone are your premier attractions on that brand. You go over to Raw, and you got Bayley, you got Nia Jax, you got Mickie James, who else we got? Alexa Bliss, you know, the list goes on and on. Sasha Banks, like, that's 5 more girls right there. I'm sure I'm missing somebody. No offense to any of the female talents, Dana Brooke, whatever. You know, you can name 12 to 16 women that are on the roster right now. Alicia Fox and whatever. So that's 16 slots of your 32 right there. So are you going to put your 16 WWE contracted women? Are you going to bring back, you know, Summer Rae and stuff like that, and Lana, now that she's debuting? Are you going to put 16 WWE women talents in there with 16 independents? Because at this point, you've got enough talent on your roster, it would be hard not to do that. Or are you going to purposely pair up the women who are already on your roster to eliminate some of them and make room for some of these independent women to see if they can get over the crowd? I didn't even mention the NXT roster with Ember Moon and Asuka and all these other women, you know. So there's so much talent in WWE right now from a women's perspective. I'm curious to see how they make this 32 women thing work. Or do they not include some of their premier talent, kind of like the Cruiserweight Classic? Do they keep out of the tournament a lot of their talents and then create new stars? And then when they're finished with the tournament, are they allowed to become the next set of stars coming out of the pay-per-view? Will they pose a threat now to the different championships, the Raw, SmackDown, or NXT Women's Championship? So thank you so much, SoCal Al, for that comment. Actually, I love that name. It didn't hit me at first. Love the name. Again, people, if you want to shoot in questions, comments, anything like that, don't forget the phone number, 267-642-1160 is our sound off line. Feel free to call into that. And if you want to get started on the fan voting, frolifeplanning.com/fan poll is where all 13 blocks of the 256-man tournament are taking place. Fill out the first 3 tonight, 3 more tomorrow, whatever you want. The fan voting will be open until Thursday night, so feel free to do that. We'll be closing the fan voting around 8:30 Thursday night. which is right in time to watch the new United Kingdom program on the WWE Network. I'm going to look at a couple more matches in round 1 of the tag team tournament. I don't want to neglect the tournament. I'm going to jump to block 3 in a match that's really colliding of 2 completely different styles and totally different eras, but they kind of have a similar backstory. And this match may surprise people. I find this to be so interesting. Is the Kings of Wrestling from Ring of Honor, which were Chris Hero, who's right now Cassius Ohno in NXT, and Claudio Castagnoli. He's Cesaro. For those who don't know, he had a life long before WWE in Ring of Honor. And they take on the magnificent Don Muraco and Cowboy Bob Orton. So to put that in perspective, of course, the Ring of Honor crew, the Chris Hero and Castagnoli, they were amazing. They ran Ring of Honor's tag team division for an extended period of time. But there are those who feel that Ring of Honor isn't on par with WWE's product. I don't agree. I think they have some of the best in-ring action in the world. But just follow me on this thought process. Don Muraco and Cowboy Bob Orton were a tag team right around WrestleMania 3. And what ended up happening is they were a formidable tag team, booked very strong for an extended period of time, had some title matches with the champions. It looked like they were going to do something with them. And this was good for Cowboy Bob Orton because after Roddy Piper retired at WrestleMania 3, you had to wonder, what are they going to do with Bob Orton now? He spent a little bit of time with Adrian Adonis leading up to WrestleMania 3 and then didn't really have anything to do. So you looked at this, and the reason I find this match so interesting is both teams are comprised of talents that could potentially have gone on to be world champions and who instead got stuck in the mid-card for way too long, where it kind of typecast them. In the case of Cesaro, there's hope that, maybe one day he'll reach his potential and get a shot at being world champion, have a world championship run. But the other 3, whether it's Chris Hero, Don Muraco, or Bob Orton, obviously Muraco and Orton are retired now. They never got a world championship run, even though if you look at Muraco in, say, 82, 83, 84, 85, he was as good as anybody out in the business. And he was believed to give Hulk Hogan a run for his money for the world championship. If anybody remembers, WrestleMania 2, it was Hogan versus Bundy. That match was set up on Saturday night's main event when Hogan was defending his championship against Don Muraco. He was believable to be a challenger for the title and then never got an opportunity. Cowboy Bob Orton, his father, his son, both world championship material. Bob Orton, though, may have been the best worker of the 3. I mean, his in-ring style, he's the man who really put the superplex on the map. He was just a great talent, and I feel like he was so underappreciated in a lot the same way that Cassius Ohno, he came to WWE before. He was in NXT, he was Cassius Ohno before, and I felt like they didn't have anything to do, didn't know what to do with him. And the same thing with Cesaro. Cesaro's been on the main roster for an extended period of time now. He's been stuck in tag team matches. He was with Tyson Kidd, now he's with Sheamus. He's had a U.S. title run, that's great, but it's not the World Heavyweight Championship, and let's face it, there are people out there who would give anything to see Cesaro walk around with that belt just one time. He's earned it. He's paid his dues. He's spent his time. And when they were doing the thing where they were forming the Sheamus and Cesaro tag team, where they had the 2 of them wrestle the best of 7 series, the discussion was the winner of that best of 7 was going to get a shot at the title. And all the fans thought that meant the World Heavyweight Championship. So they were clearly, at least from the fan perspective, confident that Cesaro could draw. Because you wouldn't tease the fans that someone could get a world title shot unless they were world title material. And he was. He's phenomenal. But I'm concerned that just like Muraco and Orton, neither of these two are ever going to get the respect and the opportunity they deserve. Don't forget, if you're wanting to call in and leave a question or comment, pop into the Pro Wrestling Sound Off line, 267-642-1160. Send us your thoughts. We want to make sure we get to any more of your comments and questions. We have one right now coming in from our Twitter questions. This is from Shelby Cobra 78, and they want to know if WWE may be underestimating the impact that New Japan may have on the North American wrestling scene. Wow, great question. And here's the thing, and I hate to say this, I actually wonder if Vince McMahon even knows there is a New Japan program coming to North America. It's bizarre to me. I don't know if anybody remembers this, but when Gallows and Anderson came back last year, there was actually an article out talking about how Vince McMahon didn't even remember that Gallows used to be Festus, a mentally challenged character on his roster, teaming with a guy named Jesse, who is Terry Gordy's son, and they made a tag team, and they were relatively entertaining. And somehow they forgot all that. They forgot about him being in the straight edge society. Like, how do you forget a talent? So if you can't even remember your own talent, I fail to believe that Vince McMahon is attuned to everything going on in other promotions around the world. He spends so much time worried about his own product, I don't think he has a clue what's going on elsewhere. Now, that being said, Triple H, I feel like, is very much plugged into the rest of the world, but he still has an ego that is so high that I don't think he's willing to open his mind to, hey, we better worry about this New Japan thing. New Japan Pro Wrestling could put together a great product, and they are committed to wrestling, real wrestling. And the people in North America, the fans here, when you start seeing Monday Night Raw viewership dipping down into the 2.6 million viewers or something like that last week, that's scary. Because if you remember, only a few years ago, Impact Wrestling was drawing 1.5. Impact Wrestling does not have, at that time, had nowhere near half the fan base WWE had. But WWE fans are tuning into something else now. WWE is not attracting them to Monday Night Raw, and that's a problem. And that's something that this New Japan situation could be a bigger issue for WWE than they realize, because they do put on a good show. And people are going to tune into that show, and they're not going to see all the pyrotechnics, probably. They're not going to see all the corny storylines. They may see a few, but they're not going to see all the constant conversation. And, you go on to Monday Night Raw, and it takes 35 minutes to get to your first actual in-ring match. That's not going to be the case with them. They're going to be a wrestling company. And I think North American fans are going to love it, especially with the launch of that new United States Championship. I want to talk about a few more matches in round 1 of our tag team tournament. I'm headed to Block 4. And in Block 4, there's actually 2 matches that really, really stand out to me. The first, I put together purely out of humor. Jack and Gerald Briscoe taking on Mark and Jay Briscoe from Ring of Honor, which is a clash in styles as much as any match in round 1. So you've got, the Briscoe brothers from the 80s. For those who have never seen them, if you want to see a phenomenal match with the Briscoe brothers, look up Starrcade 83. The Briscoes taking on Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood, or Mark Youngblood. I always get the Youngbloods mixed up. But, Steamboat and Youngblood against the Briscoes. Great match. It's a tag team championship match, the NWA World Tag Team Championship. Check out that match if you've never seen the Briscoes wrestle. I know a lot of people know who Gerald Briscoe is because he was that comedic relief for Raw for Vince McMahon for a while. But the truth is he was actually a phenomenal tag team wrestler with his brother in the early 80s. And of course, the Briscoes in Ring of Honor, they are as amazing a tag team as is out there right now. I was actually watching a match on Access Television the other day where they were in New Japan and they were wearing those tights that looked like they had Swamp Thing growing off of moss hanging everywhere. They just have a cool look. They look tough. They look rough. So I have not the slightest clue who I'd be voting for in this match. If you were looking for straight worker, shooter style, can really hook you kind of wrestler, I'd probably go with the original Briscoe brothers. But for sheer entertainment and high spots and skill set, I actually think that the Ring of Honor Briscoes may have the edge there. I really don't know where I would vote in this one. The other match in Block 4 that I'm really intrigued by, for a very specific reason, is the match between Sting and Lex Luger as they go against the Blade Runners, which were comprised of Sting and Blade Runner Rock, which is also known as the Ultimate Warrior. And I find it amusing, actually, as a huge fan of Sting as I am, that both tag teams that Sting's a part of in this tournament, and pretty much in his career of any importance, he did have a short run with Rick Steiner in the UWF, and that team is also in the tournament somewhere. But Sting was a part of this match, and both of these teams see him with wrestlers who are historically known as being poor workers. I would argue that, Lex Luger is probably the more polished between himself and the Ultimate Warrior, but the Ultimate Warrior is the one who beat Hulk Hogan clean at WrestleMania 6. So this one is really bizarre when you think about it. Lex Luger beat Hulk Hogan in WCW, but WCW swapped that World Championship around so many times. They changed the championship more than they changed their underwear. So, I don't know how much stock I put in that. And if you boil it down, Sting and Rock, or Sting and the Ultimate Warrior, when they were a tag team known as the Blade Runners, they were still very early in their wrestling career, very green, as Jerry Lawler would call them when they wrestled in Memphis. And Sting and Lex Luger, they were more polished and very successful as a tag team. So I don't know where I would go with this. Purely from the standpoint that I would hate to see the Ultimate Warrior, his only appearance in the tournament, if I remember correctly, getting knocked out so early. But it is what it is. You guys do the voting. I'm not the one voting. I'll be happy no matter which way. But, Sting stays alive either way, and I'm the big Sting fan, so I'm okay with that. Make sure you're calling in, leaving your questions and comments on our sound off line. Once again, 267-642-1160. With that being said, we have a question from Diggstown Man, who is asking if WWE would sacrifice their investment in Roman Reigns and job him out for a while if they think the fans would be more accepting of him and eventually he could be pushed all over again and be more accepted by the fans. Let me try to interpret all that. So this person, and again, if I'm getting this wrong, feel free to shoot me another message and I'll clarify. But from what it sounds like you're asking here, and this is Diggstown Man, so if you're listening, I'm calling you out. You're saying you want them to bury Roman Reigns right now because he's so not over in the position they want him to be in, hoping that the fans would forgive him for being pushed so hard that you could re-push him later and then he would be accepted by the fans, which I've never thought about that before. And that's a really, really intriguing scenario. And I actually applaud you for coming up with such a, wow, that's a great question. And you know, there have been wrestlers in the past who have gone from being top talent to being nobody, and then they have gotten back to the mountaintop. So, you know, Jeff Hardy is somebody who, he was nobody. He was a great tag team wrestler. They pushed him to the world title, fall from grace, go to TNA, become world champion, fall from grace. Now he's back to the top of the mountain. And I'm sure WWE's probably going to push him to the top of the mountain again. So I suppose that is possible. And if you're Vince McMahon and you really want Roman Reigns to be your guy, and I think we all have figured out that that's pretty much the way it's going to be in the foreseeable future, if that's really what you want to do, I'm actually okay with that. That's a really weird way to do it, and I don't know how long you would have to bury his character to get the fans to buy into this crazy maniacal plan. This is like some Paul Heyman thinking right here. This is good stuff. I appreciate it. That's one of the best questions I've ever gotten. But I would be really curious to see if that would work. And if it would, I think WWE would really profit from it. He's already moving merchandise like crazy. His merchandise sales aren't going to drop off. It's all purely a matter of increasing sales because you would get the adult audience to more buy into his character as well. Going to go back to round one of the tournament. I have to mention the match pitting the APA against Doom. What a match. Ron Simmons does not get enough credit for being such an amazing talent back in his day. And Doom was an absolute force in WCW. For the better part of a year, nobody wanted to face Doom. Ron Simmons and Butch Reed were studs. And then you have the APA that are really a beloved tag team in WWE. They're clearly an amazing combination. But I'm going to have a really tough time. If I was picking this, I don't know who I would pick as the winner here. I actually can't wait to see what you guys pick there. Because, you know, if you really think about it, Butch Reed, for a lot of people are not fans of Butch Reed. He was actually supposed to become WWF Intercontinental Champion. He was supposed to take the championship from Ricky Steamboat. He no-showed an event, and that's when they put it on the Honky Tonk Man. But prior to that, he was really being built up like a legit star. He had a program with superstar Billy Graham. He had been all over the Southern Territories Georgia Championship Wrestling Mid-South, and he could draw money. Bill Watts drew a ton of money with him. And you put him in a combination with Ron Simmons, an all-pro athlete, all-American, Florida State, thoroughly built, and they made just such a great tag team. They were believable. The worst disguise in the history of pro wrestling. Put on just a plain black mask over the two faces of really recognizable characters. But they kept those masks on until the Steiners took them off them at, I believe it was Clash of Champions 10 in Corpus Christi, Texas. Don't ask me why that sticks in my head. I actually know why it sticks in my head, but that, look it up if you don't believe me. Clash 10, Corpus Christi. That was also the night that Sting blew out his knee, rushing into a cage that he shouldn't have been jumping on when he got kicked out of the Four Horsemen. But back to what we're talking about. I think that when you compare these two teams, JBL was a world champion, and I felt like he did a great job with the world championship. Ron Simmons, not as much. I remember when he won the WCW World Championship, it was kind of like a joke that the number one contender was the Barbarian at like Halloween Havoc the year that he won the title. So I don't know how legit his world championship caliber was, but I think Butch Reed was a missed opportunity. And so when you're comparing these teams, I don't know, man, that's a tough one. So I put that together on purpose because I was trying to eliminate multiple uses of Ron Simmons. But when I put these matches together, I didn't really think about how they lined up. I purely went on the emotion of eliminating doubles and things like that. So I'm curious to see how you guys respond to those. Turning our attention to Brock Lesnar. It has been officially announced earlier today when I was putting the topics together that I wanted to discuss with you guys. June 26th and July 3rd, he has been added to the Raw shows, which clearly will build to his title defense at the Great Balls of Fire pay-per-view. I actually saw just before we went live that he's been added to the I think it's like the June 12th or something like that, 13th, whatever it is, one other episode of Raw. So he should be making 3 appearances at Raw. He'll have his title defense at Great Balls of Fire, and then he's also been added, I saw that right before we went live, to the post Great Balls of Fire pay-per-view Raw. So he's being added to quite a few shows. Now, the problem for me is it's going to be 4 months between championship defenses, but whatever. I suppose last time he was championship, it was like that too. It'll be interesting to see how they book him for that pay-per-view with the injury to Strowman and Reigns. What I'm confused with is, now that Strowman's injured and he's going to be out 4 to 8 weeks, and you have Roman Reigns sitting on house shows facing Bray Wyatt, WWE has an opportunity here to run a program of Brock Lesnar versus Finn Balor. Can you imagine how small Balor is going to look beside the Beast? But I get the strong feeling that that may be the direction they go, just based on the house show performances. You've seen, Bray Wyatt and Roman Reigns now are facing each other at all these different shows. So I would not be surprised if that's the direction that they go. So definitely something to keep our eyes on. If that is what they're going to do, I would expect them to start pushing Balor hard in the next week or two to start really building him to be a legitimate threat to Brock by the time that pay-per-view gets here. So we'll have to keep our eyes on that. Just an FYI, once again, the Sound Off line is open. We're keeping it open tonight until 10 o'clock. So make sure you get your questions in as soon as possible. 267-642-1160. And again, keep your questions coming in on Twitter if necessary, at FAFII0918. And we're going to get back to round 1, some more crazy matches in round 1 of our tag team tournament. And this is one I wasn't thinking when I put it together. Round 1, we have Kel Steenwerico from Ring of Honor, which was comprised of Kevin Steen, which is Kevin Owens, and El Generico, Sami Zayn, as they take on the Hart Foundation. And I know the longtime diehard fans don't see this as much of a competition, but with the younger audience voting too, and keep that in mind, like a big segment of our audience is the younger people, the Hart Foundation could be in trouble. This is a much closer match than many people would think, and it could be the first upset of a major team in the first round. So if you are a diehard Hart Foundation fan, you better get in there and vote, because this is an opportunity for Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn to steal the first round victory from the Hart Foundation and move on into the second round, and I would not be surprised. This is a lot closer than you would think on the surface. This could be the first upset. Going to move on to some other matches here. The New Age Outlaws in round 1 are going to take on the Fabulous Ones. I love that match. The Fabulous Ones, I feel like, is another team that's underrated for what they contributed to wrestling. They were one of the first ones to have the music videos, and they'd shoot the vignettes, and they'd attract all the ladies. They had so many ring rats, it was ridiculous. And then you got the New Age Outlaws, who made the Road Warriors. Yes, they weren't the Road Warriors of 1985, 86, 87, but the Road Warriors in the early 90s to mid-90s to late 90s, they made them look pretty weak. New Age Outlaws took them down, and they didn't get back up, So, interesting match. One of my other favorites in round 1, and I wasn't thinking this through when I was plotting things out, and it got down to where I was running out of tag teams and who to put with who, and I ended up booking the Hardy Boys, Matt and Jeff Hardy, against the Eliminators, Saturn and Cronus. I was a monstrous Eliminators fan when they were in ECW. I felt like they were a tag team that WCW screwed up. They should have signed Saturn and Cronus together, and they should have focused the heck out of them against the Outsiders. As a matter of fact, if I was thinking, I would have booked them against the Outsiders in this tournament just to have people vote on that, because I think people who were diehard ECW fans probably love the Eliminators as much as I do. I'll be curious to see what you guys do with that. Another one of the high-profile matches, the Wolves, or the American Wolves. Eddie Edwards and Davey Richards versus Roppongi Vice. I mean, right now, that's one of the best tag teams in the world, going against another team that, they broke up recently, but in recent memory, were holding their own in the ring with the Dudleys and the Hardy Boys. So this match, I mean, this is one I actually can, in my mind, can see happening at some point in the future. I'm sure it would not be impossible for Ring of Honor to reform the Wolves and have them make this match happen if they decide to ever leave Impact Wrestling. But we'll have to see. This next one, very bizarre for me. The Mega Powers, Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage versus the Mega Maniacs, Hulk Hogan and Brutus the Barber Beefcake. And I'm going to tell you why that one's so strange for me. I think on the surface, if you wash out Hulk Hogan, because let's be honest, Hulk Hogan pretty much was the same in both of those tag teams. So he's like a wash. So it boils down to Randy Savage and Brutus Beefcake, which for me, that's hands down Randy Savage. But hear me out on this. When the Mega Maniacs were originally formed, they didn't call them that, but when they were originally a tag team, in WWE, that is. I mean, they wrestled a lot when they were younger, before they were stars together. But after all that, when they were in WWE, when the movie No Holds Barred came out, Hulk Hogan was world champion, and they were booking him against Zeus. In a tag team match, it was Zeus and Randy Savage versus Hogan and Beefcake. Now, I want you to understand why this, to me, is so important. Zeus was supposed to be the wrestler who was a threat to Hogan, and Savage to Beefcake. So in WWE's booking perspective, I'm not saying in wrestling ability, I'm not saying in career strength or anything like that, but purely from who they paired up with who and how they match up, they put Brutus the Barber Beefcake on the same level with Randy Savage. Now, Brutus Beefcake, in his entire career, I only know of him winning the World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Championship with Greg the Hammer Valentine. I know he was scheduled to win the Intercontinental title before his boating accident. I know he was booked against Honky Tonk Man and Mr. Perfect and all these other people for the Intercontinental title several times, but he never really made it past that status. Randy Savage, he's Hall of Fame material. And Randy Savage deserves the Hall of Fame. Multiple world championships, Intercontinental title, U.S. titles, tag team titles in WCW. Like, you name it, he's done it. So, if you're looking at a full body of work, I think it's a hands down win for the Mega Powers. But if you look at it from when Savage actually got in the ring with Beefcake, I don't know that they ever got in the ring other than that match for the No Holds Barred feud that was going on. So I'm curious to see how you guys pick that one. In the same thread, the Mega Bucks, Andre the Giant and Ted DiBiase, taking on the Colossal Connection, Andre the Giant and Haku, who actually won the WWF Tag Team Championship. They held it for a few months, lost it at WrestleMania to Demolition. I'm curious to see where that one goes, because I think, a lot of people appreciate Ted DiBiase's wrestling savvy. I have somebody popping up right now on the message feed, and they're saying Beefcake will destroy Savage. That tells me right away who that is. I know that viewer very well. Diehard Beefcake fan, and for good reason. But I'm curious to see what you guys do with that, because I am actually a huge fan of the Colossal Connection. I thought it was the perfect team for Andre the Giant to be a member of. And so, good luck with that voting. I don't know where... Mega Bucks never won a match. They never won a match. The Colossal Connection won the Tag Team Championship. But it was Ted DiBiase. I'm a huge fan of DiBiase too. Next match of interest, the Brothers of Destruction, Kane and The Undertaker, versus Team Hell No, Kane and Daniel Bryan. And here's what makes it even harder. It is the only time I think... No, it's not true. There are 2 times that The Undertaker appears in this tournament. In the Brothers of Destruction and in the New Skyscrapers when he replaced Sid Vicious. So I don't want to see The Undertaker get eliminated from the tournament in his... Essentially, I mean, that other one I don't expect to go very far. I would hate to see him get eliminated here, but it is also the only appearance, I believe, of Daniel Bryan. And I don't really want to see Daniel Bryan out of the tournament either. Kane is Kane. I don't think his character has changed, at least his skill and in-ring performance, any more than he looked the whole time he's been in wrestling. He's the same guy now as he was way back in 1998. So that match for me, very cool. Very interesting, and I don't want to pick a winner because I don't want either person to lose, whether it's The Undertaker or Daniel Bryan. This one here I'm throwing in because, I'll be honest, I'm going to admit this out loud, and then I'm going to lie the rest of my life and say I never said it. The Bromance. TNA Impact's Bromance. Jesse Goddard's. I'm a huge Big Brother fan. He was on the show. He sucked me in. Thoroughly love the guy. I think he's an awesome talent, and he's a buddy of mine on LinkedIn, and he is very cordial. He shoots me messages and stuff, so thank you, Jesse, if you're listening. And, the tag team that he formed there, this bromance, to me, thoroughly entertaining. And to see them go against the Fantastics, Tommy Rogers and Bobby Fulton. So, yeah, and in some way, the two teams are identical, but one is a heel and one is a babyface. I'm curious to see how you guys book that. I don't even know who I'd pick in that. I don't think it matters, honestly. I don't really see the Fantastics or the Bromance going very far in the tournament. Not trying to diss either tag team, but they are so similar, yet so different. The American Alpha taking on the world's greatest tag team. You had to know I was going to book those two against each other, just if for no other reason, just because of all the hype around Kurt Angle returning to the company and everybody wanting to see Kurt Angle be like a manager or mentor to American Alpha, and him having that relationship with the world's greatest tag team before, Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas. So it's up to you, America. The rest of the world, I always got to wrap my mind around that. We've got viewers now in like 88 countries. Thank you to all of you who tune in around the world. Next match, the Usos versus the Samoan SWAT team, Samu and Fatu. I thought the SST was such a tough tag team when they were active. They tore up World Class Championship Wrestling. They were believable that they could beat the Von Erichs. They were an awesome team there. They moved over to WCW, where I don't think WCW knew what to do with them. They put them with Oliver Humperdinck as their manager. They were participated in Starrcade 89 in the tag team round robin tournament, and I felt like they just got buried. They happened to be there right when we had the Skyscrapers, we had the Road Warriors, the Steiners, Doom, like all these great teams were around at that time. So I feel like the Samoan SWAT team really didn't get their fair shake in WCW, but nonetheless, I think they are definitely a quality tag team and clearly on the level with the Usos. I don't care which one you pick there, but I find that to be an intriguing match. And one that I really didn't want to book, but I did it purely based on my commitment to trying to eliminate like wrestlers in the tournament, and that would be Kevin and Kerry Von Erich versus Kevin and David Von Erich. So, I feel bad doing that. I think David Von Erich is really the most talented Von Erich in the history of World Class Championship Wrestling. Died far too young. He should have been a main eventer. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. He passed away when he was on an overseas tour in Japan. Kerry Von Erich, another one who passed away way too soon, self-inflicted gunshot wound. Kevin Von Erich's the lone Von Erich left. As a matter of fact, we podcasted on a previous episode. He's returning to the ring over in Israel with his sons. And I've always been a fan of his as well. He's the only guy I know who never wore shoes to the ring. But I don't know who you pick in that one, but I had to put that together and eliminate the like wrestlers on the thing. I actually have a new comment pop that says, what do you think if the whole Bullet Club came into WWE and attacks Finn Balor and AJ Styles? That would be awesome. I would be a huge fan of that. WWE needs to think straight for a moment. Let's face it. In the past, 10 years, WWE has slowly been a little more aware of what's going on around the world, but not enough. If you let the Bullet Club, like this year, Kenny Omega's contract was up. The Young Bucks contracts were up. I don't care what you have to do. You could sign whatever deal you got to sign. You bring the Bullet Club in. Keep them off television until you get them all signed, and then bring them in and let them just tear the house down. They are as good of an invasion angle as the NWO or WCW or ECW's invasion on Raw or anything like that. Whoever, and I apologize because I don't have a name that goes along with that tag, but that is a great question and something I would love to see happen. That would be a storyline for the ages. And of course, for those who are not overly familiar with the history of the Bullet Club, Finn Balor, the original leader of the club, AJ Styles, his replacement. Styles replaced by Kenny Omega. It'd be really cool to see Omega lead the Bullet Club into WWE and attack the two former leaders. What would be even cooler is, tying into this question, is if Finn Balor and AJ Styles were getting beat down by, say, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, and Cody, or pick any combination of four guys, and Balor and Styles Do it at the Survivor Series. They have to go to Survivor Series. You could even do it simple. You could have them jump one of these guys. Have them jump Finn Balor. Or have them jump AJ Styles. Styles goes to Survivor Series. He has to bring backup. He has to bring reinforcements. He's going to go against the Bullet Club. And his tag team partners could be Finn Balor, Gallows, and Anderson. Have Bullet Club versus Bullet Club, or have Balor Club versus Bullet Club. I don't care how you do it. That would be awesome. I'd be thrilled to see that. That would be very, very cool. So thank you to the person who sent that question in. That is a great question. This is why WWE, I don't know if anybody's ever noticed, but if you go to their corporate website, when they hire people to book their shows, they're looking for people who are television producer people who've booked soap operas and things like that. That is not what we want. We're wrestling fans. We want people who are fans like we are. We want people to come in there to book storylines and give ideas about the kind of wrestling we want to see. And nobody knows what a wrestling fan wants more than another wrestling fan. It's ridiculous that we keep seeing like the same matches every Monday night. I don't know about you guys, but I guarantee you, if I handed you a sheet of paper and we wrote down every person on the Raw roster, we always hear people complain that Raw is too long. It's 3 hours. It should only be 2. That's nonsense. I've agreed with that for far too long. It doesn't have to be shorter. We just need people who know how to book matches. We need people who would go onto Raw and take those talents, all of the talent, and find a way to maximize it. Get rid of 75% of the conversation on the show and put more in-ring action. Let me see the Bo Dallases of the world. Let me see the Curtis Axels of the world. Let me see those guys every now and again. You can have a great mid-card, a great entry-level card, and a great upper tier if you just booked people better. So what a great question. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. Other news of the day, the Young Bucks were guests on the Edge and Christian podcast of awesomeness. And in that podcast, they talked about a potential move to WWE. And they said that if it doesn't happen, their contracts run with Ring of Honor for another 18 months. Essentially saying, if at the end of 18 months it doesn't happen then, it probably is not going to happen at all. This is the one shot that they have at the end of this 18-month contract. That is going to be the one shot probably WWE has of bringing them in. They did actually talk about how right now, even if they were free agents, this would not be the time to go. There's been such a mass influx of talent to WWE, especially to NXT from other companies, that they would get lost in the shuffle. They wouldn't be able to be a focal point of any program. Whereas if they wait the 18 months, they live out the rest of their contract, they have a better shot of being put in a prime position. So very curious to see what happens 18 months from now. It's time for our last question from Twitter of the night. This is from Judas Leprechaun, who wants to know if the WWE has become so caught up in pushing their network that they've lost touch with what should be day-to-day business instead of the actual wrestling. Absolutely. They are so worried about corporate stuff. They're so worried about their publicly traded this and that and their subscriber count and all this other stuff that the actual in-ring wrestling sucks. And I'm not saying they don't have great wrestling matches. They do. We were just talking a few weeks ago about the main event on Raw when it had Dean Ambrose and The Miz and, the three guys going for the shot at the Intercontinental Championship. We were talking about Finn Balor. We were talking about how that was like a 5-star quality match on Raw. The first one all year probably. But those matches are so few and far between. We've seen Gallows and Anderson versus Enzo and Cass or, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, we've seen the same tag team matches for the last 7 months. We've seen the same mid-card matches for months. Heck, we've gone all the way back to having Kalisto go against Braun Strowman. Like, why? Why do that? If WWE had any clue what their fans want to see, this would never, ever happen. And that's the problem. We need people like you and people like me booking their shows, because we would do a significantly better job than the people there. And yes, to Judas Leprechaun's question here, yeah, I think they are completely out of touch with what should be day-to-day business. That, I don't know if I read that right the first time, but what should be day-to-day business is the booking of actual wrestling, not this Hollywood soap opera nonsense. Before we go, please make sure if you are interested in being a patron of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. For those who have no idea what Patron is, we kind of added this about a week and a half ago. Patron is a website that allows you to become a monthly subscriber to the podcast and offer us a form of support. And for doing that, there are various levels, starting at $1 a month, where you get your name included in our thank you and comment section on our podcast episodes that appear on YouTube, all the way up to our $50 a month contributor, who is someone who would get the opportunity to do a live broadcast with me via phone conversation. And though there's all different points in between. You know, there's like a $5, a $10, $25, something like that. So there's different levels of subscriber contribution. We would love to have you guys do that. And I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. People who know me in my personal life know I'm a very straightforward and honest person. We don't have one patron yet. And I'm not knocking my fans. My fans are awesome. But let's face it. These episodes are free on YouTube. I wouldn't want to pay for something I didn't have to pay for either. But I will tell you this. If anybody tuned in earlier today, we had that great interview last night with Johnny Mantell. He heads up the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. We posted that today for y'all. And the beautiful thing is after he and I got done our interview, we actually ended up talking for about another 20 minutes. So there's about 20 more minutes of conversation that I will be editing out and putting into a supplement to that interview. That supplement is going to be an exclusive for patron members only. So that's kind of where the patron thing comes in. We'll be adding exclusive content to our patron page along with some of our regular content that'll be free. And that way, you know, we can give you an incentive for wanting to be a part of our patron family, and we can get you guys some reward and benefit for being a part of our ever-growing family. So if you are interested in that, www.patreon.com/ProWrestlingPodcast. You could sign up for as little as $1 a month. And anything you can do would helps us put together more equipment, better microphones, better soundproofing, whatever it is that we need. And we would love to do that for you. Yeah, to be perfectly honest with you, it would help with trying to book some of the interviews. Some of these guys, I'll be honest with you, I thank Johnny Mantell, Tully Blanchard, Marek Brave, all the people that we have talked to, Dr. Tom Pritchard, every talent that we have interviewed so far have been so gracious that they have given us their time for absolutely nothing. And other talents that I've contracted to try to talk to, or I've contacted trying to talk to, have been, yeah, I'll be more than happy to talk to you. How much money are you willing to pay me? And perfectly honest with you, I'm not willing to pay anything, because you know what? You guys are making the money you're making because of fans like us. So I'm not overly inclined to go out and give them more cash to come onto our podcast and do an interview, because there's so many other talents I'll look for. But some of them are not all that expensive. So if the patron page thing starts to work for us, maybe we can use some of those funds to try to book some other talents for some of our interviews. That is all the time we have for this episode. Man, that hour flew by. We're actually a couple minutes over, but I don't care. It's worth it to deliver this kind of a show to our loyal fans. You guys are awesome. You mean the world to us. Check back with us next episode. Probably going to be around Monday evening, Tuesday morning-ish, and that'll be focused on the happenings on Raw. Then we'll see another episode probably Wednesday dealing with SmackDown, and then any other wrestling news and rumors that pop up throughout the week. We'll be sure to get you guys as much content as we can. Special thanks as always out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing our music and sound effects. I know I say that every episode. I don't think people realize bensound.com is the ones who produce our intro music, and purpleplanet.com produce our background music during our normal episodes and our exit music. So thank you to both of those websites. They're phenomenal. If you are kicking off a podcast of your own, you're looking for some music you can use that is royalty free and you are allowed to use, they are two wonderful sites to do that. Our podcast is also sponsored by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with Sketchy People. Showcase your artistic side in this new game from Beazle Games by going to www.thegamecrafter.com/sketchypeople to pick up your copy today. If you haven't heard me say it before, it is a very cool, kind of like Pictionary meets Chutes and Ladders. Great game for whether you're kids, adults. You can even make it a drinking game. Very cool game. Check that out. I want to say, I think it runs $33.99 on GameCrafter. Very cool game. There are a couple others that I've endorsed in the past. If you want to go, GameCrafter.com/Legendary Elements is another great game. That one is more for the men out there. And there's one that is GameCrafter.com/Banani Market, BANA, like banana, Banani Market. That one there is a whole shopping market game. So by all means, check out those games. The Game Crafter, an amazing website. If you have any creativity in you and you want to put together your own game, you can create your game for free at Game Crafter and then publish it for sale to other audiences and, It is a really cool website. And AlleyRepair.com. Contact AlleyRepair.com today for servicing of all of your classic skee ball, pinball, and arcade game needs. This guy is top quality performance. This guy works his tail off to make sure that your equipment works as if it's brand new. His work is second to none. By all means, if those are things that you have a need for, contact him today at AlleyRepair.com. Be sure to shoot over to our website at www.frolifeplanning.com for all of your higher education needs. I always say it, Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I am proud to announce that several of our clients this week, were in the last month or so, have been getting acceptance letters to colleges of their choice. We've had a great success rate this year. Every single client this year has gotten their number one choice for college placement this year, which is something I'm very proud of, not just for helping these people, but I'm so proud of them for working so hard to get into higher education. For today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro. I want to thank you for taking a few moments with us today. If you're looking for more wrestling news and rumors, go to www.tsjsports.com/WWE for my latest articles on the world of pro wrestling. I have a new article going up tomorrow morning at 10:10 a.m. It's the company makes us do the timed delay release. So if you want to check that out, go ahead. It is all about the booking issues that have arisen in WWE based on the popularity of Braun Strowman versus the lack of popularity for Roman Reigns and the character and the quality of Brock Lesnar. So, until next episode, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. It has been a great experience. I hope you found this to be as exciting as I always do. And until next time, guys, take care, and we'll see you soon.